Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive, and this one is all about group work.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically, we're diving into Chapter 2 of Building Thinking Classrooms in Mathematics,
Okay.
and I'm really excited to see what this chapter has in store for us,
Me too.
because it promises a surprisingly simple yet powerful approach to transforming those sometimes chaotic group activities into dynamic learning experiences.
It's all about letting chance decide who works together. And you might be surprised to learn that this can actually lead to a much deeper collaboration
Okay.
and a more joyful math experience for everybody.
Interesting. I'm
Thinking?
intrigued already.
Great.
Let's start with the basics.
Sure.
Why do we even put students into groups in the first place?
Yeah.
We all have our reasons, right?
Definitely.
What are some of yours?
Well, the chapter lays out 3 common rationales for grouping students.
Okay.
Pedagogy, productivity, and peacefulness.
I like it.
So pedagogically, we believe in the power of diverse perspectives, right? For productivity, we might group students strategically based on their skills for specific tasks.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And let's be honest, sometimes we group students for a little bit of peace and quiet in the classroom.
Oh, absolutely.
Classroom management.
Yeah, a little bit of peacefulness.
Yeah,
I think we've all been there.
for sure.
But here's the thing, and maybe this resonates with you.
Okay.
I've meticulously planned groups carefully, considering personalities and abilities, only to find that the same social dynamics keep playing out.
Yeah.
The leaders take over, the followers disengage,
Yeah.
and the magic of collaboration never quite materializes.
Yeah, it's incredibly common.
Yeah.
And the chapter highlights that despite our best intentions as teachers, there's often a mismatch between our goals and the reality of student interactions.
Yeah,
Students being students, they often prioritize their own social agendas,
right.
which can derail even the most well-thought-out grouping strategy.
It's like they're playing a completely different game. And the chapter cites some research that really drove this point home for me.
Yeah.
80% of students in strategically formed groups still ended up as either leaders or followers.
It is a staggering statistic.
It is.
And what's so fascinating here is that these pre-existing social dynamics, these patterns of who takes charge and who sits back, can actually hinder the very learning we're trying to promote.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The chapter even includes some quotes from student interviews.
Yeah,
you know,
it does.
to really illustrate this.
And one that really struck me was from a student named Stuart,
Yeah.
who said, probably not. I'm going to offer any ideas or take a lead on any of the work.
Wow, talk about predetermining your level of engagement.
Right.
They've already checked out before the work even begins.
Absolutely.
So if our attempts to strategically engineer the perfect groups
Yeah.
are often backfiring,
Yeah.
what's the solution?
Right.
The chapter throws out a pretty radical idea, doesn't it?
It does. This is where it gets really interesting.
Go ahead.
The chapter proposes embracing something called visibly random grouping as the key to unlocking genuine collaboration.
Visibly random.
Visibly random.
So ditch the spreadsheets,
Yeah.
ditch the carefully curated pairings, and just let fate decide.
In essence, yes.
What-
And while it might seem counterintuitive,
Yeah.
even a little chaotic, the logic behind it is really quite compelling.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Yeah.
Walk me through this.
Okay.
Why would randomizing groups be better than all of our careful planning?
Well, imagine those ingrained social hierarchies dissolving.
Okay.
When groups are formed randomly, it breaks down those familiar social barriers.
Uh-huh.
It disrupts the leader-follower dynamic and forces students to interact with classmates they might not typically choose.
Okay.
And this, in turn, increases what the chapter calls knowledge mobility,
Okay.
meaning that ideas, strategies, and understanding are flowing more freely throughout the classroom.
So instead of knowledge being concentrated within those pre-existing social circles,
Yeah.
it's being shared and exchanged more broadly.
Right.
I can see how that would lead to deeper learning for everyone involved.
Exactly. It's like shaking up a snow globe.
Yeah.
You're disrupting those settled patterns and creating a more dynamic environment where everyone has the opportunity to contribute and learn from each other.
Okay. I'm starting to see the light here,
Sure.
but let's get practical.
Okay.
What does visibly random actually look like in a classroom?
Yeah.
Are we talking about drawing names out of a hat?
Think along those lines, but with a little more intentionality.
Okay.
The chapter emphasizes that it's not enough to just tell students that the groups are random.
Right.
We need to show them
Okay.
to make the process transparent and demonstrably random in their eyes.
So it's not just random, it's visibly random.
Exactly.
Why is that distinction so important?
Because students need to both perceive and believe in the randomness for it to be effective.
Okay.
It takes time to shift their mindset away from those ingrained social dynamics and to fully embrace the idea that anyone can be a valuable contributor regardless of their usual social standing.
Okay, I'm getting this.
Did it?
But give me some examples of how we can visibly randomize groups.
Sure.
How do we actually make this happen?
The chapter suggests various methods.
Okay.
You could use playing cards,
Okay.
labeling tables with suits or ranks, and having students draw a card to determine their group.
Right.
Another option is to use a random name generator projected on the screen for everyone to see.
I like it.
Or you could even create a seating chart using a randomizer and display it publicly.
Okay.
The key is that students see and understand that chance, not social dynamics, is driving the group formation.
I love that. It
Yeah.
adds an element of fun and excitement to the process.
It does.
Instead of dreading group work, students might actually look forward to seeing where they'll end up.
Exactly.
But let's talk about the impact.
Okay.
Does this random grouping approach actually deliver on its promise?
Let's talk about that.
I mean, does it actually improve student collaboration and engagement?
Let's dive into that next. So the research suggests that visible random grouping really does have a positive impact on how students learn and interact with each other.
Okay.
The chapter highlights several benefits
Okay.
backed by real classroom experiences.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
Convince me.
All right.
What kind of positive changes are we talking about here?
Well, let's start with the most obvious one, willingness to collaborate.
Yep.
Even students who were initially resistant to random grouping, those who clung to their familiar friend groups, eventually came around.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You have an example of that?
The chapter tells a story about two students,
Okay.
Hunter and Jasmine,
Okay.
who were initially quite vocal about wanting to stay with their usual group.
Mm-hmm.
But within a few weeks, their resistance faded. They began to see the value in working with different classmates and being exposed to new ideas and perspectives.
So they went from keep me away from those randoms
Oh.
to actually embracing the experience.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's a pretty impressive turnaround.
It is.
What else did the chapter highlight?
Well, another significant benefit is the elimination of social barriers.
Okay.
When students are constantly being mixed up, they're forced to interact with classmates they might not usually choose to work with.
Yeah.
This can lead to new friendships, increased empathy, and a greater sense of belonging within the classroom community.
That sounds like a win for social emotional learning, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it also ties into the concept of knowledge mobility,
Uh-huh.
which we touched on earlier.
Right.
When you break down those social silos and mix students from different backgrounds and ability levels, knowledge and understanding spread more organically.
Okay.
Students are exposed to different ways of thinking, different approaches to problem solving, and they begin to see that everyone has something valuable to contribute.
I love that because in a traditional classroom setting where students often stick with the same groups,
Yeah,
some voices can get lost, some talents can go unnoticed.
right.
This seems like a way to really tap into the collective intelligence of the classroom.
Exactly. The chapter shares an anecdote about a student named Idris,
Okay.
who was struggling with a particular math problem. He was in a random group, and he observed another student, someone he wouldn't normally interact with,
Okay.
approaching the problem in a completely different way. And this sparked a light bulb moment for Idris.
Wow.
And he was able to solve the problem using this new approach.
It's like those aha moments are multiplied when you have that cross-pollination of ideas happening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this leads to another benefit that might surprise some teachers,
Yeah.
reduced social stress.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
I would think being thrown into random groups would increase anxiety for some students,
Yeah,
especially those who are shy or introverted.
it's counterintuitive, but the chapter explains that random grouping can actually alleviate social pressure for many students, particularly those who dread the process of self-selection.
You mean the whole who wants to be in my group dance?
Exactly. That can be a minefield of social dynamics,
Yeah.
especially for students who are more reserved.
Right.
Random grouping takes the pressure off.
Okay.
They don't have to worry about choosing or being chosen, about fitting in or being rejected.
Uh-huh.
They can simply focus on the task at hand.
So it creates a safer, more inclusive space
Yes,
for those who might otherwise fade into the background.
exactly. The chapter shares a touching story about a student named Amanda
Okay.
who was painfully shy.
Wow.
And she would often feel excluded during group work, hesitant to speak up or offer her ideas.
Right.
But with random grouping, she felt a sense of relief.
Okay.
She no longer had to navigate the complexities of social hierarchies.
Right.
She could just be herself, and her contributions were valued equally alongside her classmates.
That's a powerful testament to the potential of this approach.
It is.
It's not just about academics.
No.
It's about creating a classroom environment where everyone feels seen, heard, and valued.
Absolutely.
And that's when the real magic happens.
Yes.
When students feel safe and supported. They're more likely to take risks, to share their ideas, to engage deeply with the learning process.
Exactly, and that's what we want.
Okay, I'm sold on the benefits.
All right.
But let's get down to brass tacks here.
Okay.
How do we actually make this work in a real classroom?
Yeah.
I'm picturing teachers scrambling for decks of cards or fumbling with random name generators.
Right.
And what about those inevitable moments when the randomizer pairs up students who just don't get along?
Yeah.
Or when a student with special needs requires a specific learning environment?
Yeah, these are all very common and valid concerns.
Yeah.
And the chapter has us covered.
Okay, good.
It dives into the practicalities of implementation
Okay.
and addresses some of those common concerns.
Perfect, because I'm already brainstorming scenarios in my head and wondering how to handle them.
Let's unpack those practical considerations next.
Okay, so let's talk about how to actually make this work.
Yeah, let's get into the nitty-gritty.
The practical application of it all.
Yeah, one of the first things that the chapter emphasizes is the importance of smooth transitions.
Oh, absolutely.
Because when you're switching between activities and randomizing groups frequently, it can easily become chaotic if students don't know where they're going.
Yeah, we don't want kids just like wandering around the classroom trying to figure out where to go.
Exactly. So the chapter suggests that your randomization method should not only tell students what group they're in, but also where they should go.
Okay.
Visual cues are your best friend here.
So instead of just saying group 1, group 2,
Right.
we're giving them a very clear visual destination.
Precisely think about labeling tables or workspaces with identifiers
Okay.
that correspond to your random grouping method.
Okay.
So for instance, if you're using playing cards, each table could have a giant suit symbol or a number
Right.
prominently displayed.
I love that it turns the transition into a mini game.
Exactly.
Find your matching suit, or
Yeah.
everyone with a 7 head to the table with the big red 7.
Exactly. It adds a layer of fun and gamification.
Yes. Which can help students embrace the randomness and get excited about the group work ahead.
Right.
The chapter also suggests shaking things up even further with the physical layout of your classroom.
Oh, so going beyond just rearranging desks.
Right. Think about creating a whole new spatial configuration.
Okay.
Maybe you push desks together to form pods,
Okay.
or create designated work zones for each group, marked with colorful tape or signs.
So we're not just randomizing the groups, we're randomizing the entire classroom environment.
Exactly. It reinforces the idea that we're doing something different, something special, something that breaks away from the usual routine.
Right.
It signals a shift in the learning dynamic,
Yeah.
and students pick up on that energy.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm getting excited just thinking about the possibilities.
Good.
But what about the frequency of randomization?
Yeah.
How often should we be shuffling those groups around?
The chapter recommends that for K2 classrooms.
Okay.
You randomize groups every day.
For grades 3-12, randomizing every other day is sufficient.
So it's not a set it and forget it kind of thing.
Right.
We need to keep those groups fluid and dynamic.
Exactly. Remember, we're trying to disrupt those ingrained social patterns
Right.
and create a learning environment where collaboration is constantly evolving.
Yes. And speaking of keeping things fresh, the chapter encourages teachers to get creative with their randomization methods.
Oh, absolutely.
So we're not just stuck with playing cards or name generators.
Not at all. There are endless possibilities.
Let's hear some.
You could use popsicle sticks with students' names written on them.
Okay.
Online randomizers, dice rolls, even a spinning wheel app projected on the screen. The key is to choose a method that works for your classroom and keeps things engaging for students.
I love that it's all about finding what resonates with your students
Yeah.
and your teaching style.
Exactly.
But what about those times when we need to make exceptions?
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes there are legitimate reasons to strategically group certain students, maybe for a specific project or to accommodate a learning need.
Absolutely. The chapter acknowledges that there will be times when it's necessary to deviate from the random grouping approach.
Okay.
Perhaps there's a history of conflict between two students that needs to be carefully managed.
Right.
Or maybe a student with special needs requires a specific learning environment to thrive.
So it's not about being dogmatic about the random approach.
No.
It's about using our professional judgment
Exactly.
to make the best decisions for our students.
And speaking of professional judgment, the chapter offers one final piece of advice that I think is crucial.
Okay.
Trust your instincts.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Because sometimes as teachers, Our gut feeling is the best guide.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know your students best.
Right?
You understand their personalities, their strengths, their areas for growth.
Yeah.
So if you have a hunch that a particular grouping might not work,
Yeah.
it's okay to adjust, to tweak, to make it right.
That's so empowering.
It
It means we're not just blindly following a formula.
Right.
We're using our expertise and our understanding of our students to create a truly personalized learning experience.
Precisely, and that's the heart of what it means to be a thinking teacher.
Yes.
Constantly reflecting, adapting, and refining our practice to meet the unique needs of each and every student.
Well, this deep dive has been incredibly insightful.
It has.
We've explored the rationale behind visibly random grouping, uncovered its many benefits, tackled practical considerations,
We did it all.
and learned how to implement this approach in a way that feels authentic and engaging for both teachers and students.
Yes.
So to all of our fellow educators out there, we encourage you to take the plunge,
Yes.
experiment with visibly random grouping in your own classrooms, and watch as the magic of collaboration unfolds.
You won't regret it.
And remember, Chapter 2 of Building Thinking Classrooms in Mathematics is an invaluable resource,
It is.
filled with even more insights and guidance.
For sure.
Don't hesitate to revisit it, delve deeper, and let it inspire you to create a learning environment where every student thrives.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of collaborative learning.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, happy teaching.